Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Zealwood and today we're taking a look at Among Trees, a game just recently released on Steam, and to answer the ultimate question, as always, is it worth your time? So, Among Trees is a single-player, indie, open-world sandbox, exploration, survival game. Set in a captivating, fantasy-like forest, you take on the role of a regular human being, simply tired of the real world and seeking a wilderness retreat. You'll be exploring a surprisingly vast, rich in resource woods, creating a number of tools, cabin utilities, and equipment, all while ensuring your survival by gathering raw materials and avoiding threats. So aesthetically, it's safe to say that the visuals of Among Trees are pretty amazing. Lightly textured object and surface designs, subtle use of cell shading, and incredibly impressive lighting effects create a radiant, practically glowing world around you that balances both realistic visual assets with toon-like creative touches incredibly well, providing a stunning, almost hybrid of the two for a surprisingly appealing end result. Colours used are wonderfully deep yet quite cold throughout, providing a rich, warm look to sunlit and bright areas, except with strong hues of blue and grey for shadowed areas or during nighttime. This provides a chilly touch to the world around you, which funny enough is relevant to the location and temperature of this enchanting forest. Lighting effects though, I have to say, are by far the most dominant and appealing visual assets in my opinion. General shadow effects, sunbeams, surface glows, ambient specks, water mist, morning dew, and more. All are very subtle individually, but together really pack a punch when it comes to your visual immersion. The general shadow effects though, depending on the time of day, can look a bit cheap, but the fact that so many effects running in unison caused no frame drops or performance issues throughout my entire playthrough was a pleasant surprise. Textures and detail are of course on the minimal side of the spectrum. This however doesn't take away from the game's charm, and if anything is a welcome design that really completes the light-hearted visual theme. Wood and foliage look subtle yet distinct, stone and caves appear primitive and cold, and the water designs are truly stunning. What more could you ask for? The UI is practically flawless in my opinion. Small, simple icons to detail your stamina, the time of day, and your various well-being indicators, all brought together with a minimal inventory design, and easy to navigate crafting screens provide to-the-point information that even a child wouldn't have trouble understanding. Level layouts of this open world forest are somewhat unique and do vary the further you venture from your log cabin. You've got points of interest that you auto-document in your journal, varying biome designs throughout the land, as well as areas to avoid if you want to remain breathing. Character and enemy designs are very few and far between of course. Small creatures like birds, rabbits, foxes and fish are simple in design and react exactly how you'd expect, most of which aren't actually interactable due to the fact that hunting isn't a mechanic included within the game's coding. The only noteworthy animations are your character's hand movements and actions, as well as the big ass bears that like to keep an eye on their bare necessities, both of which are decently animated and get the job done fine. Overall, a superb visual standard that balances effects, textures and performance brilliantly. The OSTs of Among Trees are all very nice. Light, delicate, high quality SFX sounds used, combined with the occasional elegant, subtle instrument, creates a strong sense of tranquility and content that really defines your wilderness exploration experience. Plenty of reverb, resonating sounds and charming high notes also add to this effect and make each venture into the great outdoors a somewhat pleasant one. You do however get the occasional high tension, looming urgency tracks when traversing areas with a big old bear present, which does make sense since they can of course eat you alive. Very fitting tracks for a very hostile threat. Everything else sound related, like environmental sounds, underfoot textures and the various item sounds are all very immersive and provide a realistic touch no matter where you are on the map. The environmental effects are especially high quality with their wind, rain, rustling trees and even indoor muffle effects, which prove to be the true backbone of your audio experience. Definitely an impressive soundtrack quality that undoubtedly adds to your light-hearted exploration experience. Now for the gameplay. So Among Trees does indeed have a few difficulty options to choose from before you play. You can choose between standard or zen for the dangerous animal spawns, and easy, normal or hard mode for the survival aspect. Standard and normal are recommended for your first playthrough though, due to harsh save mechanics combined with a strong possibility of starvation or bear attacks, especially earlier on. The lore of the game, funny enough, is just as immersive as the game's combat, practically non-existent. As mentioned, you take on the role of a plain old human, skilled in both botany and building extensions instantaneously, who's simply grown tired of the modern world and decided to escape to the wilderness. And that is literally it. Everything you would possibly need to know to start your survival exploration journey. When you first start the game, you're shown a few lines of text that I pretty much quoted a moment ago, minus the botany and building part of course. You're then brought straight to an abandoned wreck of a cabin in the middle of nowhere, where you take control of your character and play. If you're familiar with any kind of first-person game with very minimal button commands, you'll feel right at home with this game's controls. You've got your general movement commands, as you would expect, as well as an interact button, a use button, and shortcut keys for faster access to usable equipment in your inventory. All of your crafting, cooking, and building are done through selection screens, so it's not like you actually need any additional controls anyway. The base concept of the game is of course your bread and butter survival exploration experience. You collect raw materials, craft tools, knock down trees, cook nutritious meals, plant and harvest crops, extend your log cabin, avoid imminent death, and much more. Common flora like berries and mushrooms can be found quite easily throughout the map, but specific resources like chicory, wormwood root, or larch resin only spawn during certain times of the day in areas often very far away from your cabin, or even at set locations that never change. Keep an eye out for items like these, as the upgrades they provide are mandatory. Watch your inventory and storage space however, because both are severely limited when you're first starting out. Unfortunately, you don't start the game with a map of course, but try to create one as soon as possible. It's one of the best items throughout your entire run, doesn't take up an inventory slot, and doesn't need a compass for it to pinpoint your exact location. After a few days, you'll also come across a little foxy friend throughout your travels. He'll pointlessly follow you around, provide no actual benefit to your exploration efficiency, and demand a snack once every 3 days. He can however be commanded to locate the nearest random resource, which, as you probably guessed, is completely pointless since you can look in any chosen direction and see collectible resources a mile away anyway. What a helpful friend. What makes Among Trees unique however is its surprisingly harsh save and well-being mechanics, how it emphasises finding new points of interest, and of course its big daddy bear encounters. As you've probably noticed already, you've got plenty of well-being indicators to keep an eye on from the moment you start, such as hunger, sleep and temperature. These need to be managed at all times or you will simply die. Don't eat for half a day, dead. Walk around during the freezing cold nights, dead. Don't sleep for a full day, surprisingly dead. This person clearly isn't a gamer. Managing these indicators, combined with the fact that saving can only be done by clicking your save journal at your log cabin, make long ventures into the far north of the map very risky and a completely impossible feat without a tent, water canister, multiple campfires, and plenty of food. When it comes to crafting, you can only develop so much from flora and rocks alone. Most useful items like equipment, tools, and cabin upgrades require various metal, cloth, and rope, all of which can only be found at set locations around the map, which appear to be old campsites or previously occupied spaces littered with nails, bolts, crates, and footlockers. One or two of these spaces are within close proximity to your cabin, but the better your equipment and cabin become, the further you need to venture from your save point. Which funny enough brings me to your forest nemesis, bears. Big ass grizzly boys that simply love to roam around useful resource locations weapons never go to sleep and are impossible to dodge once they've spotted you. You'll find that certain tools need to first be unlocked before they can be crafted. This can only be done by finding an illuminated document, otherwise known as a blueprint. A document that bears can't seem to get enough of and love to keep company during those cold, lonely nights. Tall grass and stealth are the keys to looting these areas undetected, and whatever you do, do not rush, because if you die, you're back to your previous save file regardless of how far you've travelled. Clearly a simple, to the point gaming experience that seems to ease its burden the more developed your tools and cabin become. So for the ultimate question, is it worth your time? Its superb visual standard, great audio immersion, and somewhat demanding mechanics make for a charming, entertaining, yet short-lived gaming experience that lacks any real endgame content and provides little to no replayability after your first full playthrough. I'm going to give this game a 4-star or 79 out of 100. Now personally, I'm not the biggest fan of survival exploration games in general. I find they provide little satisfaction, little stimulation due to the lack of combat mechanics, and are far too grindy. Among Trees is no exception of course, but the burdening sea of mechanics, overpowered bear encounters, and keeping an eye on 4 different well-being indicators at once definitely kept my attention high and made my 8 hours of game time fly quicker than expected. I do love the wholesome fishing mechanics, how the gameplay trailer was very congruent with the actual gameplay experience. The water in your canister and the sticks in your stove seem to reset back to 0 when you load a saved game. They have at least attempted to create some sort of end game content in the form of cosmetic only cabin upgrades like ornaments or rugs, but nothing more. The lack of combat mechanics was also unfortunate, especially when there could have been end game content based around it. Trust me, on multiple occasions I tried taking down one of those big ass bears using my axe, but alas, all animals are unfortunately immune to all forms of melee damage. And one thing I will say, this game would have been perfect on the Switch. A relaxing hour with a spot of fishing, cook a few meals, explore a section of the map, then go to bed. And on long ventures, simply press the power button to pause your game without the need for save mechanics and continue where you left off another day. I'm actually surprised the devs haven't considered something like this already. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more games I'll be reviewing in future. I really do appreciate it. If you like the content, make sure you follow my creator page on Steam. The bigger the following gets, the more likely I am to review games earlier than their actual release date. Wink wink. But as always, all the best guys. Take care.